All right, welcome to the conversation on the TYT network. Joining us now is Akili. He is organizer of Black Lives Matter in Los Angeles. And you can tell that because he's currently at a protest. So thank you for joining us, Akili. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yes. So speaking of protests, there was a giant 20,000 person protest for Black Lives Matter on Sunday in Los Angeles.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So first thing I want to ask you is, are you really encouraged by how much other folks have come out for Black Lives Matter over the last week or so in LA and other places? And do you think it might actually be a turning point?
Absolutely. I'm encouraged, and it is a turning point. The fact that people are chanting, defund the police, prosecute killer cops, stuff that positions we have taken for many years. And now it has become in the popular vernacular. So that's a great thing. And for many of us who have been working in between the big rallies and the press events and the rest, this is significant.
Yeah, I sense a sea change too. And I think that, I mean, even the NFL owners came out and said, all right, fine, we'll stop being racist.
No, they didn't say that. They said, we temporarily will at least recognize your humanity.
That's right. But that's a win in America. Okay.
Yes, it is.
Yes, we need a lot more of those wins. All right. So, but Akili, I wanted to ask you about what defund the police means.
Yes.
So there's a lot of questions about that. So you're with Black Lives Matter. So tell folks what you mean by that.
Well, a couple of things. One, Black Lives Matter for the past 5 years has been calling for shifting priorities at the city level. The police get over 50% of the general funds, and they have only been, responsible for killing us. And the LAPD, for 2 years in a row, led the country in killing its citizens. It's still in the top 5. So we have been advocating for that for many years. But the mayor here decided he wanted to fast track a budget that cut everything else, but increase police. And since police have been, certainly in our cities and most cities, been the main perpetrators of police violence, we took exception with that. A coalition formed and we challenged it. So we think that we should invest in universal needs like housing, like childcare programs, like mental health programs, and divest from the police, because it is the quality of life issues that really make our community safe. It's not more policing.
So now an issue has arisen about whether it means complete abolition of police or just defunding significant percentages of the budget to go to other areas, as you just described. So what's your take on whether it means abolition or not?
Well, within Black Lives Matter, many of us are abolitionists. We believe in the abolition of the prisons and the police. We're not quite there yet, but many of us believe that. And so how do we get there? By beginning for people to see that these bloated city budgets that go most of our resources going to control and suppression of a particular people, we can change that. We can redirect that. We can send it in another direction. And that's what defund police is about. Let's start looking at alternatives. Let's redefine safety. Let's look at how we improve the conditions and relationships with each other.
Right. So then let's talk about actual priorities in terms of whether it's legislation or executive reform that could be done. So, I know that no one person speaks for everyone else, obviously, right? But you're an organizer of Black Lives Matter. You have a deep history of fighting for civil rights. It's what you do. And
yes.
so Akili, if you had to name a top, you name it, 2, 3, 5 proposals that you would want actually changed, what would they be?
Well, first of all, I live in a city with the largest homeless population in the country. And over 55% of those people who are homeless are Black. So I would start there. I would start taking immediate steps. This is an emergency. We need to provide housing at all levels for people who are houseless. So I would start there. Another place I would start is redirecting how we spend our money at the community level, in terms of how do we engage each other, how do we create the trust that we need, and how do we deal with the issue of social violence in our community. So those are just some of the things. But I would start with housing. We have a tremendously terrible housing issue in Los Angeles. I mean, there's no amount of time, energy, and resource that we can spend right now to change that. We need to spend as much time, energy, and resources that we have to deal with that. This is an abomination. In the richest country in the world, we should not have any homeless people. So that's the first thing. Then I would want to work on nutrition to make sure that every person has the kind of nutrition they need. And then I would want to, make sure that we look at our educations. We need police out of schools. They don't make our children safer. They only criminalize our children. So I think those are just some of the things that we did a survey, and over 3,000 people filled in the survey. And the law enforcement only got 5 to 7% of the general fund. And so once again, it is a question of divesting from a bloated paramilitary organization to investing in quality of life spending, quality of life issues to make all our communities safe. We know that there's some communities here in Los Angeles that are safe. And if we look at them, we find a couple of things. They're generally wealthy. They generally have access to the resources they need in their community. And they tend to make sure that they have access to policymakers. So the combination, if we can do it in one part of the city, we can do it in all of the city.
So you're putting forward a really excellent defense of defund the police, because you're saying, look, if we could spend some of that money on helping the homeless, and by the way, not sending cops to deal with homeless folks, but sending people who are trained in that category, if there is some sort of issue that comes up, mental health workers or whatever it might be, that would be a far more productive way to go. Putting the money into our kids is a more productive way to go. I totally understand that. When it comes to police reform, to me, and like I said before, everybody's got an opinion. This is mine, and I've been saying on the show for at least a decade. One is get independent prosecutors and investigators that are not local to the police. The local folks work with the cops every day. They're never going to be objective and fair. And then two, I would say, is retrain the police and change the culture of policing, where they are taught as a matter of course to use overwhelming force. So curious your take on those two things. And if you had to retrain the police, what would you train them to do?
The first thing I would do is demilitarize them. They are a paramilitary organization. They are structured like the military. They respond like the military. And a military trains its people. It's an us against them approach. That's the first thing we need to do. As long as they think they're this special unit of people, there's this special bond that they have, like the military does, then they are going to protect themselves, not protect the people. So the first thing I would do is demilitarize the police and take away their command and control structure like it is set up. I would also not just look at retraining, because they are trained to control and suppress, control the danger and suppress the threat. And they see Black people as a threat all the time. That's how come George Floyd was killed, because that officer didn't see his humanity. He saw him as a criminal. And that's how he died. And so that's the other thing that we have to change. That's why demilitarizing them, to keep it from being an us against them kind of thing. We have to protect ourselves against them. That's what you tell your people who are going into war in a foreign land, that we got to protect each other. We got to look out for each other's back. That's not what you need on the streets, engaging with citizens and relationships and residents here. So that would be the first thing. The second thing was I would not give everybody guns. We have too many guns in America as it is. We kill each other more than folks who are at war kill each other. So that would be the demilitarize, take away all that military equipment and most of their guns. Because if they didn't have guns and they thought that they could diffuse the situation without it, they wouldn't use it. And so those are just some of the things. But one of the things that, many of us are for abolition. So these are minor steps. Some people in this country thought that if you gave them body cameras and set up these police review things, that would have an impact. It hasn't had one impact at all. And they thought, well, more training. No, that hasn't had an impact because they are a paramilitary organization. And as long as they see us against them, they're going to kill us.
Great to have you with us, Akili. Thank you so much for coming out and explaining these issues. And thank you for going to the protest you're at as well and organizing the protests. So we appreciate you joining us on the Young Turks.
Thank you so much. And I look forward to hearing more from you and always invite me back. I look forward to it.
Absolutely.
Thanks for watching this free clip of the Young Turks. Don't forget to become a TYT member today. For more exclusive content, join now at tyt.com/join.